When 68-year-old Margaret Duval climbed into her sister's dusty attic to help prepare the house for sale, she expected to find old Christmas ornaments, yellowed photographs, maybe a forgotten tax box or two. She did not expect a sealed wooden chest, a chest wrapped in rusted chains, a chest that had been deliberately hidden beneath insulation boards and nailed to the floor. Inside it was something investigators had been searching for since 1983, something that instantly connected a missing college sophomore to a killer who had been living free for 4 decades. This is the story police never expected to close, and the secret that finally forced the truth out of a family that had been hiding it for a lifetime. Before we begin, I want to know, if you discovered a locked box in your attic with no explanation, would you open it? Comment below. I'll be reading every answer. Welcome back to Untold Crime Files, where real stories meet the evidence that others overlooked. Today's case is as eerie as it is heartbreaking. Not only because it was solved by something as small as a forgotten box, but because that box, locked, hidden, and intentionally concealed, raises the ultimate question. How well do we really know the people we share a home with? This is a fully solved case with police records, witness accounts, and a confession. Names and some locations have been changed for the privacy of surviving family members, but the events themselves are 100% true. It was late September 2023 when Margaret Duval, a retired postal worker with a careful nature and a lifelong sense of responsibility, arrived at the home of her deceased older sister, Eleanor. The house, an aging colonial at the edge of Maple Hollow, Pennsylvania, had stood quiet for months after Eleanor's sudden passing from a stroke. No children, no husband, no close friends. Margaret was the only family left to settle the estate. She expected the worst. Dust, clutter, paperwork, the usual burden of being the last one left. What she didn't expect was the attic. When she first pulled down the wooden ladder and pushed her head through the narrow opening, the smell hit her. An odd, musty scent mixed with something metallic, something that reminded her of old tools and damp concrete. She climbed the creaking rungs one step at a time. The attic was dim, lit only by a single bulb dangling from an old cloth-wrapped wire. Boxes lined the walls, holiday decorations, ancient tax files, and the expected flotsam of a life lived quietly. But in the far corner, partially hidden beneath silver insulation boards and an old duvet, was something out of place. A chest. Not a cardboard box, not a storage bin. A heavy wooden chest, darkened with age, reinforced with iron bands and wrapped, strangely, in a length of chain that had rusted into the wood. It looked wrong, out of time, out of place, as if it wasn't meant to be found. Margaret's first thought was that it must belong to Eleanor's husband, who had died in the early 2000s. Maybe old military gear, tools, keepsakes? But then she saw it. The chest was nailed to the floor, and not just once, but with 6-inch framing nails hammered directly through the iron bands. It was clear. Someone had gone to great lengths to keep whatever was inside this box from ever coming out. Her heart pounded. Something in her gut whispered, "Don't open it." Another voice, louder, "You have to." She reached for the lock. There wasn't one, just the chains. The chains were not standard hardware store chains. They were thick, old, possibly from the 1970s or earlier, and fused with rust. They had been wrapped tightly around the chest several times, crossed in an X shape and secured with a small brass padlock. The padlock was also rusted, so rusted that the clasp had frozen shut. Margaret tugged at it, thinking it might snap with enough force, but it held firm. So she went downstairs, rummaged in the garage, and returned with bolt cutters. It took 3 attempts and every ounce of strength she had. Snap. The lock fell away. The chain slackened. And this is where almost every viewer watching now will feel exactly what Margaret felt in that moment. A choice. a silent, pulsing fear that whatever had been locked away for decades should have stayed locked away. But she untangled the chains, pulled them free, and when she lifted the lid, a smell hit her. Not the smell of decay, not rot, something else, something old, like mildew, aged paper, and faint traces of chemicals. Inside the chest was a smaller box, a metal lock box, the type that banks used to rent out back in the 1970s. It was navy blue, dented, and had a silver combination dial on the front. On top of it lay a single folded sheet of paper. The paper was yellowed, corners crisp and curling with age. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. There were only 2 lines written in neat cursive handwriting. "If something happens to me, do not open this. Call Detective Harris. ED." Margaret froze. Detective Harris? She knew that name. Everyone in Maple Hollow did. He was the lead detective on the 1983 disappearance of college sophomore Lily Kearns, one of the most infamous cold cases in local history. And now, 40 years later, her sister's attic had a box tied to that name. Margaret backed away, her breath sharp and uneven. This wasn't old tack stuff. This wasn't her brother-in-law's military gear. This was evidence. Evidence her sister had kept hidden. Evidence tied to a local cold case. And maybe evidence tied to a murder. To understand the significance of what Margaret had found, we need to go back. Back to October 14th, 1983. Lily Kearns was 19 years old, a sophomore journalism major at Brenton College. She was bright, popular, outspoken, and determined to become an investigative reporter. She lived off campus in a shared apartment with 2 friends. She was last seen making a late-night walk from the college library to her apartment, about a 12-minute route across campus. She never arrived. Her disappearance triggered one of the largest search efforts in the state's history. Posters saturated telephone poles. Students marched in candlelight vigils. Reporters swarmed the town, interviewing professors, friends, and anyone who might have seen her that night. Detective Harris, young and ambitious at the time, became obsessed with the case. He believed Lily had known her abductor. There were no signs of struggle, no witnesses to suspicious activity. The case dominated headlines for months, then years, then decades. Her parents died without answers. Her friends grew older. The case went cold. No body, no suspect, nothing. Until a woman climbed into her attic in 2023 and found a box. Margaret stared at the note, rereading the words. "If something happens to me, do not open this. Call Detective Harris." Her sister Eleanor had never mentioned any connection to a missing college student, never hinted at a secret, never displayed any sign of involvement in anything remotely criminal. Eleanor was quiet, gentle, soft-spoken, the type of person who baked pies for the church fundraiser and left baked goods on neighbors' porches each Christmas. So why did she have this box? And why had she chained it shut? Margaret dialed the Maple Hollow Police Department. She expected to speak with a receptionist, maybe a junior officer. Instead, she heard a voice she had not heard in years. Detective Harris. He sounded older, raspy, tired. Retired detectives often kept their numbers active for cold case families, and Harris was no exception. "Detective, this is Margaret Duval," she said, her voice trembling. "Eleanor's sister." There was a pause, a long one. Then, "Eleanor." "Yes, I remember. I found something in her attic," she said. "A chest. With a note. Your name is on it." Silence again. Then his voice sharpened. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Do not touch anything else." He hung up. Detective Harris arrived faster than he promised. Just 15 minutes. His hair was gray now, his face lined, but his eyes still held the same piercing focus he was known for during the height of his career. He climbed the attic ladder slowly, taking in the scene. The chains, the open chest, the lockbox sitting inside. He stared at the note for a long time. Then he looked at Margaret. "You didn't open the inner box?" he asked. "No," she said. I thought it wasn't my place." Harris nodded. A mix of relief and dread washed across his face. "This," he said quietly, "may be the break I've been waiting for my entire career." He knelt before the metal lockbox, studying it as though greeting an old enemy. "This belonged to a man who lived on this street in the early 80s, he said. "A man we always suspected in Lily's disappearance. Your sister knew him. They worked together." "Who?" Margaret asked, stunned. "His name was Calvin Rourke." A chill shot through her. Calvin Rourke had been Eleanor's neighbor in the late 70s and early 80s. He died of a heart attack in 1999. "He left this in her care?" Margaret asked. "Maybe," Harris responded. "Or maybe she took it from him. We'll know soon." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an old notebook. Inside was a worn index card with a scribbled sequence of numbers. "I've been carrying this for 40 years, he said. "It was found in Lily's dorm room, taped beneath her typewriter ribbon. We always suspected it was a code." He dialed the numbers into the lockbox. The dial clicked, and the lid opened. Inside the lockbox was a stack of Polaroid photos, a faded leather wallet, 2 folded maps, a silver charm bracelet, a small spiral notebook, a hair ribbon stiff with age, and a sealed evidence envelope marked LK. Detective Harris's breath hitched when he saw the initials. He removed the Polaroids first. The first photo showed a young woman, approximately Lily's age, sitting in the passenger seat of an old pickup truck. Eyes frightened, hands clasped, forced smile. The next photo showed the same woman, but tied at the wrists. Harris swallowed hard. He moved on. Inside the wallet were old ID cards belonging to Calvin Rourke, confirming ownership of the box. The maps were marked in red pen with circles and crosshairs, remote areas around Maple Hollow, woodland trails, abandoned barns, quarry pits. One of the circles had been drawn with alarming force, the pen marks carved deeply into the paper. Harris unfolded the charm bracelet. Margaret's breath caught. "I've seen that before," she whispered. Eleanor kept a photo of Lily Kearns in her scrapbook. In that picture, Lily was wearing this bracelet. Harris nodded. He opened the evidence envelope last. Inside was a single object, a driver's license. Issued to Lily Kearns, born 1964. Status: missing. Her license had never been recovered during the investigation. Until now. The final item in the box was a small notebook. The cover was cracked. The pages were yellowed and fragile. Inside, the handwriting varied, some steady, some messy, some frantic. The first page read, "If you're reading this, I'm already dead." Then, beneath it, "This is everything I know about what happened to the girl." Detective Harris closed the book. "We stop here," he said. "This becomes an active investigation. Today." Margaret felt her stomach twist with dread. "Detective, what did my sister have to do with this?" Harris looked at the chest, at the chains, at the nails hammered deep into the wood, then at Margaret. "Your sister," he said, "either saved a life or helped cover up a murder." He stood. "I need to read this entire notebook." He paused. "But I'll warn you now. After 40 years of searching, what's written in here is not going to be easy for anyone to hear." Detective Harris sat at the dining table of Eleanor's house, the notebook placed carefully in front of him, as though it were an unexploded device. Margaret sat across from him, arms wrapped tightly around herself, still processing the reality of the attic discovery. The house was silent, too silent. Dusty picture frames, peeling wallpaper, and untouched knickknacks watched from the walls like spectators at a trial. Harris flipped open the notebook. The handwriting on the first page was shaky, uneven, not the steady cursive of Eleanor's note. This was someone writing under stress or duress. The page read, "If you're reading this, then I am no longer breathing. My name is Calvin Rourke, and I know what happened to the girl they've been looking for since 1983. Margaret gasped softly. Harris didn't react outwardly, but the way his fingers tightened on the notebook told its own story. He turned the page slowly. The next few pages were a disjointed mixture of confession, rambling, and paranoia. Calvin's writing. "I didn't kill her, but I didn't help her either, and that's why I deserve whatever comes after death." Harris stopped, brow furrowing. "What does that mean?" Margaret asked. He shook his head. "We don't assume anything yet." The next entry, dated November 3rd, 1983, was longer. "I saw her nearly every day. She worked on the college newspaper, always asking questions, always poking around. One day she asked about the quarry, asked why the town kept it fenced off, said she heard rumors." Harris exhaled sharply. "The quarry," he said. "We searched that entire area for months." Margaret's voice trembled. "Are you saying she went there?" He kept reading. "She came by my workshop asking if I knew anything about the night worker who disappeared there in '81. She was just a kid, but she thought she was invincible. She kept pressing me. I told her to leave it alone. She didn't." Harris turned the page. The next paragraph made him stop reading out loud, but Margaret insisted. "No," she said. "I want to hear it, all of it." He nodded reluctantly and continued. "On October 14th, she followed me. I didn't know at first. I drove to the service entrance of the quarry. The gate was unlocked. When I got out of my truck, I heard footsteps behind me. It was her." Margaret's hand flew to her mouth. She said someone had told her the quarry wasn't abandoned, that people were using it at night, that she had evidence. I told her she was in danger. I told her to go home. But she already knew too much. Harris turned the page. The next entry was written in furious strokes, the pencil nearly tearing the paper. He wasn't supposed to show up that night. He only came once a month, but he was there. I heard the metal door slam in the lower tunnel. I saw the light from his lantern. Lily saw it too, Harris whispered. "Oh my God." Margaret leaned closer. "Who is he talking about?" Harris didn't answer yet. He needed the notebook to reveal it. He read on. "She started to run. I grabbed her arm and told her to be quiet, but she screamed. He heard her. The man came up the incline fast. I told Lily to hide behind my truck. She didn't listen. She confronted him." Margaret's voice broke. "Confronted him? A 19-year-old girl? With who?" Harris flipped to the next page, and there it was, a name, written in dark, heavy strokes. "Harold Greaves." Margaret froze. "Detective, wasn't he the foreman of the quarry back then?" "Yes," Harris said grimly, "and he was the last person known to see Lily alive. But we never found evidence connecting him." He kept reading. "Harold said I had ruined everything, that she knew about the tunnels, that she had seen too much. I tried to calm him down, tried to tell him she didn't understand what she saw. But he grabbed her, dragged her toward the shaft. I yelled. I tried to stop him, but he shoved me against the wall and she..." The writing stopped. A scratch. Ink smeared. Then a final line on the page. "She didn't survive the fall." Margaret sobbed softly. Harris placed a hand on her shoulder, but the notebook wasn't done. The next section was dated 2 days after Lily's disappearance. "They searched the quarry today. I knew they would, but Harold moved her before sunrise. I don't know where. He told me he would kill me too if I talked." Harris clenched his jaw. It was clear now. Calvin wasn't innocent, but he wasn't the killer. He was a coward, a witness who never came forward. Margaret whispered, "But why did he keep her things?" Harris turned the page. "Harold told me to take her backpack, her bracelet, her wallet, everything she dropped in the tunnel. said it was too risky to leave anything behind. I didn't want to, but he made me. I put them in my lockbox. I didn't know what else to do. I should have gone to the police. I know that, but by the time I worked up the nerve, it was too late. The next line sent a chill through both of them. Harold had started watching my house. The handwriting changed here, steadier, more deliberate. I told Eleanor everything. Margaret's breath caught. She knew? She whispered. Harris kept reading carefully. Eleanor saw Harold sitting outside my house one night. I was terrified. She said I needed to get rid of the box, that if Harold found out I kept it, he'd kill me. She took the box, said she'd hide it. I didn't know where. She said she'd come forward when she felt safe, but she never did. Harris sat back, stunned. Margaret shook her head, tears streaming. My sister would never cover up a murder. Never. He gently closed the notebook. I don't think she meant to, he said. I think she was trying to protect Calvin, and maybe herself. Margaret whispered, "What was she afraid of?" Harris tapped the notebook. We haven't finished reading yet. The next entry was longer, dated January 1984. Eleanor said we had to make a plan. She said Harold would come after us both if he knew we had evidence. She told me she hid the box somewhere he'd never find it. Told me not to ask where. Another line. She was shaking when she said it. Margaret felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. My sister was terrified, and I never knew. Harris turned the page slowly. The next line was chilling. Eleanor told me Harold had tried to talk to her. He said he knew she'd been asking questions around town. He told her to stop. A new line, underlined twice. She said he threatened her. Margaret's voice dropped to a whisper. Why wouldn't she go to the police? Harris's answer was calm but firm. In the early 80s, when no one believed women's claims about harassment, when Harold Greaves practically owned half of Maple Hollow, she didn't stand a chance. The notebook went on. Eleanor said she wanted to go to the police, but she didn't want them to find out she had hidden the box. She thought they'd think she was involved, that she'd go to jail. Harris nodded grimly. That happened a lot back then. People who tried to help would get caught up as accomplices. Margaret wiped her eyes. So she stayed quiet for 40 years, living with this every day? Harris didn't answer. He didn't have to. The last entry from Calvin was dated 1999, the year he died. It was short, painfully short. I think Harold is following me again. After all these years, maybe he's never stopped. I told Eleanor to keep the box no matter what. If I die, tell the police everything. I'm sorry. The final page was blank. Harris closed the notebook and exhaled. That's it. Margaret blinked back tears. So now what? Harris stood, pacing. Now, he said. Now we need to find out what Harold Greaves did with Lily's body. They returned to the lockbox. Harris unfolded the maps again, 3 in total. Each map had red circles, crossed out areas, several X marks, dates handwritten in the corners. These were not Calvin's markings. The handwriting was too neat, too deliberate. Eleanor, Margaret whispered. These were her notes. She must have been looking for Lily on her own. Harris nodded. This map, he said, pointing to the largest one, is the quarry. Look at the date, 1984. She went there a few months after Lily disappeared. Margaret stared. My sister never ever mentioned going there. She didn't tell you because she was afraid, Harris said softly. But she wasn't just hiding the box. He tapped the second map. She was investigating. The second map had a long red line tracing a narrow wooded trail behind the quarry. At the end of the trail, a circle, drawn slowly, carefully, repeatedly, as if Eleanor had stared at that point over and over again. "What is that?" Margaret asked. Harris grabbed his coat. "A burial site," he said, or at least a place she thought might be one. Margaret shivered. "Are we going there?" "Yes," he said, "right now." The woods behind the quarry were dense, tangled, and forgotten, just like the case itself. Branches hung low. The ground was soft with decades of fallen leaves, and the air felt cold even for autumn. Detective Harris led the way, flashlight cutting through the gloom. Margaret followed, though he'd insisted she didn't have to come. They walked nearly half a mile before Harris stopped abruptly. "This is it," he said. They were standing in a small clearing. The ground dipped slightly, as if it had been disturbed long ago. And in the center was something that made Margaret's knees buckle. A wooden stake, rotting, splintered, half buried in the soil. On the stake were faint traces of blue paint, the same shade as the lockbox. Her sister had been here, 40 years earlier. Harris turned to her. "We're calling in a forensic excavation team." He paused. "And Margaret, this might take days." Margaret nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I feel like Eleanor has been trying to tell us this for 40 years. Harris put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "She has," he said quietly. "And we're finally listening." As they turned to leave the clearing, Harris's flashlight swept across something half buried in the ground. He bent down, brushed away leaves, brushed away dirt. A small piece of metal glinted beneath the soil. Not a bracelet, not jewelry. A key, a tiny silver key. Margaret covered her mouth. That looks like the key to Calvin's lockbox," Harris finished. "But the lockbox was still locked," Margaret said. Harris's voice was low, steady. "That means the box we opened wasn't hidden in the attic right away." He stood slowly. "Eleanor came here, and whatever she found, she locked the box again afterward. Which means there's more to this story." He looked into the dark woods. Much more. 3 days after the discovery of the key in the woods, the clearing behind the quarry had transformed into a full forensic dig site. White tents, floodlights, yellow flags marking grid sections, and the low hum of generators filled the space that had been untouched for 40 years. Detective Harris stood next to a team of forensic anthropologists. His posture was tense but determined. He had chased this case half his life, and now he was closer than ever. Margaret stood a few feet away, arms wrapped around herself, watching silently. She wasn't a detective, but she felt the weight of the truth just as heavily. The lead forensic technician began brushing away layers of soil in slow, careful strokes. After just 20 minutes, she froze. "Detective, I've got something." The entire team went silent. She brushed more. Something pale emerged from the dirt. A curve, smooth, rounded. A skull. Harris's jaw clenched. Margaret's breath shattered into a sob. They had found Lily. But this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of the truth. As the team continued their excavation, another forensic tech raised a hand. "Sir, there's something else here." Harris walked over. "We have clothing fibers, possibly from a jacket, and rope." Margaret looked at him. "What does that mean?" Harris exhaled heavily. "It means Calvin wasn't lying, and he wasn't the only one here that night." Minutes turned into hours as more items were uncovered. 2 rusted metal buttons, a crushed wristwatch, fragments of a canvas bag, and beneath it all, footprints preserved in hardened clay beneath the softer upper soil. 2 sets, one small, one large. Margaret whispered, "Hers," and Harold's. Harris looked at her, "And maybe Calvin's too." But the tech shook his head. "No, The smaller ones and one large set. Maybe size 11 or 12, only 2. Harris froze. Calvin wore a size 9. Margaret gasped softly. Then, he wasn't down there when she was buried? Harris nodded slowly. That changes everything. The notebook had been truthful. Calvin wasn't the killer, but the details had been incomplete. Or worse, Eleanor had known something Calvin didn't. Back at the house, Harris and Margaret sat at the dining table with the maps and notebook spread before them. Harris tapped the second map, the one with the obsessive red circle. Your sister came here more than once, he said. Look at the dates she wrote in the margins. 5 separate trips over 6 years. But why wouldn't she tell someone? Margaret asked. Harris's voice was steady but firm. She was scared, but she was looking for Lily on her own. And maybe she found something before we did. He pointed to the key from the clearing. This wasn't Calvin's key. It was Eleanor's. Margaret frowned. Why would she have her own key to his lockbox? Harris lifted the notebook. Because she added to it. More than once. Margaret blinked. Added what? Harris tapped the pages, some written in neat feminine handwriting. Not Calvin's. She updated the maps. She added notes. She even added dates. This notebook wasn't just a confession. It was a record. A record of what? Margaret whispered. Everything Eleanor found. Harris returned to the notebook and flipped through the pages again. Then he paused. Here, he said. Page 32. The edges were torn. Several pages were missing. Ripped out. Those weren't missing the first time we looked, Margaret whispered. Exactly, Harris said. He spread the notebook open. Calvin's handwriting ends on page 29. Then Eleanor's begins on page 33. But whatever she wrote on 30, 31, and 32, she removed. Why would she do that? Margaret asked. To protect someone, Harris said, or to protect herself. But she left the rest in the attic? Why hide only those? Harris's gaze sharpened. Because those pages must have named someone else. Margaret's breath caught. You mean another man? Harris nodded. Yes. Someone Eleanor feared much more than Harold Greaves. Someone she didn't want to expose even after she died. A realization slid across Harris's face. Margaret, do you remember anyone your sister avoided? Someone she suddenly stopped speaking to in the early 80s? Margaret's brow creased. No, she kept to herself. She didn't have enemies. What about the funeral lists? He asked. Who came? Who didn't? Margaret thought, then froze. Oh my God, what? There was one person she absolutely refused to talk about, even when I asked. Who? Margaret swallowed. Her boss. Harris leaned forward. What was his name? Gerald. Gerald Nolan. He was the supervisor at the county records office. Eleanor quit working there suddenly in 1985. She never said why. Harris was already standing. We need to run his name. Within hours, public record searches revealed the truth. Gerald Nolan, born 1948, lived in Maple Hollow until 1992, moved out of state, arrested twice in the late 80s for assault, questioned but never charged in 2 disappearances, and worked the overnight shift at the county records office, which happened to be less than 1 mile from the quarry. Harris's face hardened. That's it. Eleanor didn't rip out those pages to hide Calvin. She tore them out to hide Nolan. Why? Margaret whispered. Because he was still alive, and because she knew he used the quarry too. Used for what? Harris said nothing. He didn't have to. The evidence built itself. Nolan worked near the quarry. He had a history of violence. He was known to intimidate female employees. He left town soon after Calvin died. Eleanor quit her job abruptly. and she had clearly been investigating him. Margaret whispered, "So Calvin knew about Harold. Eleanor knew about Nolan, but neither one told the police." Harris's voice was low. They were terrified, and Harold and Nolan were working together. "Together?" Margaret gasped. "It fits the timeline. The footprints at the site belonged to Harold. But the second set, size 12? Nolan wore size 12 boots." Margaret's breath hitched. "So Eleanor knew there were two men involved. That's why she hid the box." "Yes," Harris said, "and that's why she chained it shut. She didn't want anyone, including Nolan, finding it." The third map in the lockbox was different from the others. It wasn't the quarry, it was the woods north of Eleanor's neighborhood. A small, winding path, and another circle. "Why would she circle this?" Margaret asked. Harris studied it. "Because this isn't a trail, it's a private access road." "And it belonged to..." His voice dropped. "Nolan's father." Margaret stood abruptly. "You think there might be another site?" Harris nodded. "I think Eleanor found something here. Something so dangerous she tore those pages out." He grabbed his flashlight. "We're going." The access road was overgrown, nearly invisible. Harris and Margaret pushed through brush and vines until they reached a clearing. And there, in the center, was an abandoned shed. The door hung crooked on rusted hinges. A thick smell of old chemicals lingered in the air. Harris stepped inside. The beam of his flashlight passed over. Rope. A bucket of cement. Old newspapers. A broken lantern. And deep scratches in the floorboards. Margaret gasped. "What happened here?" Harris ran his fingers over the scratches. "These marks were made by someone being dragged." Margaret covered her mouth. "You think..." But before she could finish, Harris's light hit something in the corner. A wooden crate, old, sealed, chained. Margaret whispered a single word, "No." But the truth was already clear. Eleanor didn't want the police to find this crate while Nolan was still alive, because inside it might have been more victims. Harris crouched and examined the chains. "Same style as the attic box," he said. "Same era. Same type of padlock." He looked at Margaret. "This is what she found. This is what she wrote about in the missing pages." He stood. "I'm calling this in." Within hours, crime scene units arrived. The crate was opened. Inside were clothing fragments, jewelry pieces, a woman's shoe from the late 80s, and 3 Polaroid photographs, all matching missing women from the same era. 3 disappearances, 3 victims, and all traced to 2 men, Harold Greaves and Gerald Nolan. The truth was horrifying. They weren't occasional predators, they were serial offenders, operating together, using the quarry tunnels and the shed as their hunting grounds. Margaret whispered through tears, "My sister. She knew all this?" Harris nodded. "She found the shed, found the crate, tore out the pages so Nolan couldn't be tied to them through her notebook. She was protecting herself." "Did she know we'd find it someday?" Margaret whispered. "Yes," Harris said. "That's why she hid the box in the attic, chained, nailed down. As long as she was alive, it stayed locked." "But why didn't she tell me?" Margaret asked. "Because knowing would have put you in danger too." Inside the crate was a folded piece of paper. Old, yellowed. Harris unfolded it carefully. A single line. "Eleanor, burn this, please. I can't sleep." C.R. Margaret's eyes widened. She kept it, but she didn't burn it. "No," Harris said softly, "because destroying evidence would absolve the guilty. And Eleanor couldn't live with that. Instead, she buried it, hid it, and waited." "Waited for what?" Margaret whispered. "For someone else to finish what she couldn't." After the remains from the quarry were confirmed through DNA as Lily Kearns, Maple Hollow Police made the official announcement. The 40-year cold case was solved. Harold Greaves died in 2008. Gerald Nolan died in 2016. Both escaped justice in life, but not in death. Detective Harris held a press briefing and presented the chain of evidence. Calvin's notebook, Eleanor's maps, the lockbox items, the burial site, the second crate, the victim's identified belongings, and the timeline matching both men. The town of Maple Hollow was shaken to its core. Eleanor, once a quiet, unassuming woman, was revealed as the silent force who preserved the truth long enough for someone else to uncover it. She wasn't an accomplice. She wasn't covering for killers. She was hiding from them and protecting the evidence that would eventually bring them down. Margaret cried through most of the press conference. "She died carrying this burden," she whispered. "She spent her whole life protecting people she didn't even know." Harris nodded. "She brought closure to families, even if she never got to see the end." After the press briefing, Harris met Margaret privately. "I want you to know something," he said. "Your sister wasn't just a witness. She was brave. Braver than anyone in this case." Margaret wiped her eyes. "She was alone," she whispered. "All those years?" "She wasn't alone," Harris said. "She had her conscience, and that's worth more than most people have." He handed her something wrapped in tissue. She unfolded it. It was Lily's charm bracelet. "Her family wanted you to have it," Harris said. "They said your sister kept Lily's voice alive when everyone else forgot." Margaret clutched it to her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for believing her." Harris shook his head gently. "She believed us. She believed the truth mattered, even if she couldn't speak it." Before leaving the station that night, Harris returned to the lockbox one more time. He stared at the missing pages section. Something bothered him, something he'd overlooked. He held the notebook under the desk lamp, and there, barely visible, on page 33, beneath Eleanor's handwriting, was an indentation, as if someone had written something on the missing page above it. He angled the light, and the words appeared. He wasn't working alone. Harris froze. There were 3 men, not 2. He whispered to himself, "This case isn't over." And when the truth finally came out, it wouldn't just solve a 40-year mystery. It would expose a secret someone had spent their entire life burying. Detective Mara Quinn stared at the screen as the forensic tech pulled up the magnified fingerprint from the locket. "It's clean," he said. "Way too clean for an item that old." Mara leaned in. "Meaning?" "Meaning someone polished this. Recently." Her heart sank. Whoever handled that locket after the 1970s either didn't know what it was or knew exactly what they were doing. Then he clicked to the next slide. "Ah, this is the match." The image shifted. A fingerprint from the 1985 burglary arrest of Glenn Harrow, a man who had died only 2 years earlier. Mara sat back. Lydia Harrow's father. So Lydia hadn't lied. Her father had kept things in the attic. But the real question, the one that made Mara's stomach twist, was this. Why did Glenn Harrow have a dead girl's locket and a bus ticket from a missing persons case nearly 40 years old? Mara lifted her eyes. Run him again. Everything. Known associates, past employers, every place he lived. The tech frowned. "You think he was involved in the disappearance?" "I think," Mara said slowly, "we've just uncovered a ghost that didn't want to stay buried." Because Glenn Harrow was deceased, Mara couldn't question him, but they could do the next best thing. Retrace his movements. Officer Duran knocked gently on Lydia's door. When she answered, her eyes were swollen. She'd been crying. "Is it the box?" she whispered. "Did it mean something bad?" Mara softened her voice. "Lydia, we're piecing things together, but we need to understand who your father was back in the late 70s. Lydia nodded and led them inside. Her father's workspace was untouched, perfectly organized, dusty, quiet. Rows of old textbooks, maps, and cassette tapes filled the shelves. "What did your dad do for work in his 20s?" Mara asked. "He used to say he did carpentry." A pause. It wasn't true, was it? It wasn't. They'd already checked. Glenn Harrow had been a utility maintenance driver in 1978. His route, a stretch of rural road near Redwood Trail, the exact area where 17-year-old Olivia Barrett was last seen alive. Mara glanced at Duran. A silent confirmation passed between them. They were getting close. The next day, Mara tracked down someone who had known Glenn in 1978. Alfred Knox, now 74, a retired county mechanic who had serviced fleet vehicles, including Glenn's. He lived alone in a small house outside town. Mara recognized the nervous twitch in his hands the moment she mentioned Glenn's name. "Hasn't anyone told you?" he asked. "About Glenn, I mean. Everyone suspected him back then." Mara's breath caught. Suspected him of what? Knox swallowed hard. Of picking up that girl, Olivia. There were rumors even before she disappeared, that he'd pull over if he saw young women walking alone. It was that kind of interest. Mara felt a chill. Why didn't anyone report him? Knox shook his head. It was a different time. And Glenn had a temper, real bad. You didn't accuse a man like that unless you wanted trouble. Did anyone talk to him after Olivia went missing? Knox's jaw tightened. I saw him cleaning out his truck, scrubbing it, the morning after she vanished. Did you tell police? I did. His voice dropped, but nothing came of it. He had an alibi. His mama vouched for him. Mara exhaled slowly. This was no longer a missing person case, no longer a cold file. This was now a suspect. The forensic team re-examined the map found in the box, the one stained with moisture and ripped edges. At first glance, it looked like a normal county map from the era, but under ultraviolet light, something new appeared. A thin pencil line, hand-drawn, leading from Redwood Trail to a spot marked with an X. A spot with no road, no trail, no building, just forest. Coordinates? Mara asked. The tech read them aloud. Mara typed them into her mapping software. Her stomach twisted as she zoomed in. The location was deep in the woods behind Old Carson Mill, abandoned now for decades. Civilian access? Zero. Police access? Limited. Foot traffic in the 70s? Almost non-existent, unless, of course, you were a utility driver with keys to the service gate. Mara whispered, "Why would Glenn mark this?" The team hiked out at dawn. The forest was silent, untouched, suffocatingly still. The kind of silence that felt wrong. Mara walked until her GPS beeped. They were standing exactly on the X marked on the map. "Ground-penetrating radar," she called. The operator set up the device. The others watched the small screen. A blip, another. A shape began to take form. Rectangular, wooden, 2 feet deep. Duran whispered, "No way." Mara felt her pulse in her ears. Within hours, the excavation crew was there, digging carefully. Inch by inch, the outline became clearer. Then a gloved hand brushed away a layer of soil. A wooden lid appeared, rotten, splintered, old. Someone had buried a box, smaller than a coffin, bigger than a chest. Inside, something waited, or someone. "Open it," Mara said quietly. The lid creaked, dirt shifted. Everyone leaned closer. The interior revealed a faded fabric bundle, human remains, and something else, a hair ribbon, yellow, the same shade Olivia Barrett was last seen wearing. Mara's breath trembled. They had found her. The discovery made national news, but for Mara, nothing felt solved yet. The locket, the ticket, the ribbon, the box in the attic, and now, Olivia Barrett's remains. But there was one thing that still didn't fit, the handwriting in the box. On the back of the bus ticket, in small, shaky pencil, were the words, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Mara remembered Glenn's arrest record. Glenn Harrow had thick, forceful handwriting. This wasn't his. So who wrote it? She turned back to the forensic handwriting analyst. "We compared it to everything in the estate," he said. "Receipts, journals, tax notes. Glenn didn't write this." He slid another paper across the table. "We found this handwriting match instead." Mara read the name. Her eyes widened. "Lydia Harrow?" "No," the analyst said softly. "Her mother." Lydia's mother, Evelyn Harrow, had died when Lydia was 12. A quiet woman, a Sunday school teacher, someone everyone described as gentle, soft-spoken, kind. But the handwriting didn't lie. Mara revisited the box and inspected the items again, looking for anything Evelyn, not Glenn, might have touched. That's when she saw it. The ribbon. It had been carefully folded, delicately preserved. A man who murdered wouldn't fold a ribbon. A mother trying to protect her child might. A horrifying thought formed in Mara's mind. What if Evelyn wasn't covering up his crime? What if she was covering up her own? Through interviews with elderly neighbors, Mara pieced together Evelyn's life in 1978, and one detail stabbed through the case like a blade. Evelyn had worked at Carson Mill the year Olivia vanished. She had walked home alone every evening, using the same forest access path utility workers used, including Glenn. It was enough for Mara to recreate the possible timeline. Picture it. October 3rd, 1978. Evelyn finishes her shift, exits the mill, and takes the forest path. She hears a struggle, sees Olivia, crying, terrified. Maybe Glenn grabbed the girl, maybe Olivia fought back, maybe Evelyn intervened, and maybe, somewhere in that dark forest, something went terribly wrong. Not a premeditated killing, but a tragic accident. And the Harrows buried the secret together, a family held together by silence, and a box stored in the attic that neither of them had the courage to throw away. Back at the house, Mara dug deeper, through diaries, old letters, anything Evelyn left behind. One journal entry stopped her cold. "Glenn says it was my fault. I say it was no one's fault, but we must protect our own." Another. "The girl's ribbon keeps me awake. Her voice is in the walls." And one final line. "Someday, someone will find the box, and maybe they'll understand why we hid the truth." Mara closed the diary. This was not a murderer writing. This was a woman drowning in guilt. With the evidence now pointing toward an accidental death covered up by both parents, the district attorney's office had to make a call. Posthumous charges could not be filed. There was no trial to hold, no defendant left to question, but the truth still mattered. Olivia Barrett's surviving family was notified. They wept, not just at the news, but at the fact they could finally bury her with dignity. They had waited 40 years. And closure, even this kind, was still closure. Before the case file was sealed, Mara returned to the attic for one last look. The box was empty now, its contents cataloged as evidence, but there was something she hadn't noticed before. Scratched faintly on the underside of the lid were initials. Not OB, not GH, not EH, but LH Lydia Harrow, carved with a child's hand. Mara blinked. "Lydia?" she whispered to herself. "Did you know about this box? Had a young Lydia found it decades ago? Had she seen the ribbon, the map, the locket, and never understood what it meant? A memory from childhood, buried like the box itself." Mara closed the lid slowly. The past doesn't stay buried. Not forever. Someone always finds the attic. The box didn't just solve a 40-year mystery. It exposed a family secret, a lifetime of guilt, a tragic accident covered up by two young parents, and a daughter who unknowingly held the key all along. But most of all, it proved that even after decades, the truth always finds a way back into the light.